Hello everyone, my name is Mitch Brown and I'm the Sales Director for Datahaven. Our team is very excited to be a platinum sponsor of this fall's DynamicsCon conference. Over the next 25 minutes, I will highlight how Datahaven 365 redefines the paperless experience using patented virtual folder technology. I'm also excited to be joined by Brian Dooling, the VP of Information Technology for Eclipse Senior Living. Brian's joining me to describe how Datahaven 365 helps their organization consistently store and access essential information such as lease documents and vaccine consent forms across 105 locations while maintaining security and HIPAA compliance. It's something you're not going to want to miss. After speaking with Brian, I will provide a short overview highlighting how Datahaven offers organizations a single source of truth through its integration with multiple Microsoft platforms. If you have questions at any point throughout today's presentation, be sure to enter them into the chat. Over the last 18 months, we all know that companies have been faced with a variety of difficulties. Employees had to quickly adjust to working remotely, which created various challenges with the storage of information like RFQs, proposals, lease and credit applications, customer POs, just to give a few examples. Oftentimes, these files relate to records within Dynamics CRM or F&O and Business Central, and keeping them stored in an organized, consistent manner is crucial to a business's success. That's where Datahaven comes in. For those of you that aren't familiar with Datahaven, we have been providing AP automation, workflow, and document management solutions to organizations for over 25 years. Our vision as a company is to take organizations from situations like this, where users are searching multiple file cabinets, network drives to find the information they need, to situations like this. A folder structure where everything is programmatically filed and named using information from Dynamics. You might be asking yourself, how is this possible? Datahaven 365 redefines the paperless experience by presenting supporting information in patented virtual folder structures that can be embedded throughout the familiar Microsoft business applications that you use every day. These include CRM or customer engagement, finance and operations, Business Central and NAV, Power Apps and the Power Platform, Outlook, and an application we've all become familiar with over the last year, Teams. When looking at the folder structure, you might be inclined to think it's a standard Windows file system, but in fact, it's much more powerful than that. As I think everyone attending today's session already knows, there are extremely complex relationships among records, accounts, opportunities, and quotes within Dynamics CRM. With Datahaven 365, users don't have to know or keep track of these relationships. Datahaven programmatically uses Dynamics information to identify and manage the relationship, not just amongst accounts, opportunities, and quotes, but also the relationship of the corresponding documents and other unstructured content that's stored against those records in the system. For example, when a document is attached to a quote within CRM, Datahaven maintains the relationship to the account and opportunity as well as the quote. For those using F&O or Business Central, Datahaven 365 can also maintain the relationship to the associated sales order within the ERP system. This gives users from the ERP system access to documents that are stored against the quote within Dynamics CRM. It can be a game changer for organizations that are using both systems. This is all done behind the scenes with no additional input from users. But it's only half the story. The folder structure is designed to allow users to be able to store documents and have access to them in all the appropriate areas, even though it's only stored once. This folder structure is completely configurable and can be modified based on the types of documents that your organization is storing. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear from one of our customers. Eclipse Senior Living has been using Datahaven for a little bit over a year now. I'm very happy to be joined by Brian Dooling, who's the VP of Information Technology for Eclipse Senior Living. Brian, welcome. Thank you for joining us at DynamicsCon. I'm very excited to have you share Eclipse's experience utilizing Datahaven with the DynamicsCon community. When we were preparing for today's session, one thing that really impressed me was the growth Eclipse has experienced since it was founded over 4 years ago. Can you provide a little history about the company background and growth for everyone that's joining us today?
Sure, absolutely. So Eclipse Senior Living is a management company, and what we do is we manage a variety of senior living communities. In fact, we have over 100 that we manage right now with several thousand employees and several thousand residents. But we started very humbly. So we started with a core of staff and executives from another senior living management company, and we took over a different brand. We started with less than 10 employees. And within our first 3 months, we took over management of 72 locations. When those employees became our employees, and then we worked our way up to 100. So we have 105 communities right now. We have over 4,000 associates working for us and several thousand residents. So in actually less than 4 years, we've gone from 10 employees to 4,000.
That's really impressive. Well, it sounds like things are going really well for Eclipse. With such rapid growth, I'm sure the team experienced a myriad of challenges building out your technology solutions. What challenge motivated you to look at a document management solution?
Sure. So we started with almost no infrastructure. So we didn't have an intranet, an external internet site. We didn't have a CRM system, financial system, HR systems. We didn't have any of that. So we built it all from scratch there. And a lot of it we built in a very short amount of time. So we had a lot of challenges there. And one of the challenges we had was with document management. We have a lot of documents across the 105 locations, and with every new resident, they sign a new lease, and there are a lot of documents that go into every resident record. And so we had a lot of documents that we were working with. The problem was getting bigger all the time, and it was a challenge that had to be addressed.
Well, that's something that we hear quite often. When you think back, what were some of your top criteria when looking at a document management solution?
Sure. So I think there are a couple of unique criteria for us. So we're what we call cloud first. All the systems that we implement are in the cloud. We don't have any of our own servers or software. So the first criteria was we were only looking for solutions that could provide a cloud option. And certainly if they have other options, that's great, but cloud was most important to us. Second is probably the Dynamics integration. We use Dynamics for our CRM system, as well as we've customized it quite a bit for our lease management system too. So we needed to be able to have that document management system integrate with Dynamics in a couple of unique ways. So that integration was also key to us. And I think that HIPAA compliance was probably the other third unique criteria that we had to work with. Some of the data that we have in our system is sensitive, and some of the data that would be stored from these lease documents would be considered HIPAA sensitive, and we needed to make sure that the company we worked with was prepared to deal with that. So I think we had other criteria too, just kind of basic criteria like it has to be easy to use, it has to be a good value and have good pricing and stuff like that. But I think that some of those other criteria are probably more unique to our situation.
Now, it sounds like you covered some of the main topics that are on everyone's mind today, being an integrated solution. Obviously, everyone's looking towards the cloud, so I think those are good points that you brought up. What were some of the key factors that ultimately had Eclipse Senior Living choose Datahaven?
Sure. There were a number. So I'm going to go back to the Dynamics integration. That was a key element of it that we knew from the start that we wanted to be able to integrate with Dynamics. And after we had seen that, after shopping around a little bit, we were impressed with the way it worked with Dynamics. Datahaven looks like it's part of Dynamics. It appears in the middle of the window. It's indiscernible from the rest of the screen, and it looks like it's part of the application. So that was a big deal for us. And another big deal for us is we have a pretty complicated security model with different locations and regions, and a lot of that is driven by privacy again, where you don't want to be able to see the data for everybody. And the security model that we already had within Dynamics was leverageable within Datahaven. Datahaven could see that security model and use it in our existing Active Directory security groups. So that was a key element for us too, was that the security was not going to be a nightmare. It was going to be integrated and seamless, in fact. So that was a big deal. And I think that, to be honest, another key element of why we chose Datahaven was the people we worked with. We could tell even during the sales process, they were top notch, and that continued to be proven out later. But seriously, we had a strong appreciation for the team, and I think that probably helped seal the deal.
Now that you've been using Datahaven for over a year, what are some of the business results Eclipse Senior Living has experienced from the implementation of Datahaven with its integration into CRM?
Right. So we scan about 100,000 pages of documents per year, and those are spread across the 105 communities that I'd mentioned earlier. So that's a lot of documentation, and the volume is growing. We're bringing on more communities all the time, so that was getting to be a bigger and bigger problem all the time. So by being able to centralize all that information in one place into an electronic repository, it really did simplify a number of different processes.
Yeah, one of the ways I like to refer to Datahaven is the single source of truth, because you can access the information that you need and it's all going to be in one location. Can you describe some of your business processes and how they've improved since rolling out Datahaven?
Sure, I can think of probably a couple of different examples. I think a lot of them fall into the categories of access, compliance, and even risk management. Because we have to have completeness of documents there, and for risk management reasons, we can't lose any of them, right? So let me think about a couple. So the first process is probably with our lease management department, and they have an existing process where once a document is signed, somebody in the lease management group has to review that and make sure that it's all in order. And with that process, the way it had been working was the communities would scan a copy of the document, they would email it to an inbox that was shared by 8 different people. And then the right person would have to figure out which document it was theirs that they were supposed to pick out and review. And they'd have to work through that with the team. And then they put it into a SharePoint repository and ultimately approve the document, leave it in a SharePoint repository that only one small team could see. So we ended up with all the paper in the field, a SharePoint repository that not many people can see. And so that whole process of just getting the documentation in the first place was simplified. But then taking it to another level, it was the access to those documents. So by putting them into a centralized repository, we were able to provide easy access to anybody who had access to Dynamics. And that already included a number of people like regional people or auditors, our internal auditors, or a variety of legal team, a variety of people who would need regular access to important documents like that. And so just providing that access, that became tremendously much more simple, because the old process was somebody would have to make a phone call to a local location. They would have to look up the paper document in a file, and hopefully it would be there. And that file could be thick. That file could have dozens of documents in it. And then they'd have to scan and email those to somebody else. So that whole process of access also tremendously simplified. And then there's one more example that I had also, which is really more compliance related. And it really highlights the integration between Dynamics and Datahaven. So Datahaven, when it uploads a document, can actually also set fields in Dynamics. It can control data in the Dynamics record. So when we upload a document, we have it automatically set the upload date, and we have it trigger a little flag too. And we use that flag internally to indicate where they are in the process and that a document has been uploaded. So it seems like a small thing for us, but we use those 2 fields for a very important internal compliance reason. What we do is when somebody's in the new resident documentation process, we don't allow them to complete that process until that document has been uploaded. It's automatically triggered, it's automatically tracked, and it's used as part of our overall compliance process. So something seemingly small actually solved a lot of problems for us, and that integration between the 2 tools is extremely helpful.
Well, it sounds like there have been a lot of process improvements that Datahaven's been able to, put forward for the entire Eclipse staff. Now, I know a lot of times when rolling out a new solution, there's a lot of hesitancy among staff. Overall, how did they embrace the switch to using Datahaven for a document management solution?
So that was one of the best parts. So it was really well received when it was rolled out. So we did training, and we had to roll it out via video during the middle of COVID. So we were very effectively able to demonstrate and train remotely. We got very positive feedback on it. And because we were able to build some of the Datahaven processes into our Dynamics flows and make them a mandatory part of the process, like I mentioned earlier, we had 100% adoption. So we forced the adoption through the integration with Dynamics, but more importantly, people were happy with it, and they felt like that value had been added, and we'd simplified things for them. So successful with the rollout and the adoption.
Well, we all know over the last 18 months, it's been particularly difficult for all organizations. How has using Datahaven 365 helped the Eclipse team manage the challenges that were posed on businesses by the pandemic and its fallout?
So we actually did increase our use of the system during the pandemic, and it helped us out in a pinch. So one of the things that we had to do very suddenly was, because we manage senior living communities, we had to manage the process of bringing people into the locations and getting them set up with vaccinations. And there's a lot of documentation that goes with that process also. So we had to be able to manage the documentation for several thousand people on a record by record, person by person basis. And because we already had all that integrated with Dynamics, we were able to very easily add documents for consent forms and proof of vaccination and other documentation that had to be collected. Well, we were able to really easily adapt the system to be able to handle that situation. And in fact, it took longer to actually document the process and roll it out than it did to make the changes. The changes were very easy for us to make and adopt. The rollout was actually the part that took longer. So it helped us out in a difficult, high priority situation.
Overall, how has Datahaven been for the team operationally?
It's done exceptionally well, actually. And first of all, it's a cloud system. So again, part of our strategy is we don't want to worry about backups and patching systems and servers and stuff like that. So from just a basic cloud standpoint, it certainly does everything you would hope for and expect for in that category. But I think that something that stands out, though, is that the system has not gone down for us at all. And I have several other systems integrated with Dynamics, and Dynamics itself and those other systems have all gone down in recent history, and Datahaven has not. So it's been kind of the rock amongst another group of peer systems there. So I have to say that, of course, I'm certainly happy with that.
This has all been a lot of great information for everyone that's attending today's session. Finally, one last question I have for you. Are there any recommendations you would make to an organization looking to implement a document management solution?
Sure. I think some of the experience comes in retrospect. It's just ease of use. And I think that's pretty typical for any system. But I think that we really found a large part of our success after the fact was really because the adoption was taken up so enthusiastically. And it was easy to use, and it became a valued and core system pretty quickly. So as always, just make sure to make sure that the system is easy to use and will be adopted well by the users.
Well, I appreciate that. Brian, thank you again for joining us for DynamicsCon and sharing your experience utilizing Datahaven with Dynamics CRM. I know our team has enjoyed working closely with the Eclipse team, and we're all delighted with the project's success. We look forward to working with you and your team for years to come.
Well, thank you. We've been genuinely happy with our implementation, and thank you also. We appreciate it greatly.
One of the keys to the success of the Datahaven implementation at Eclipse is the software's ability to ensure that files, like lease agreements, are stored in a consistent manner across all 105 locations, and only that appropriate users have access to those files. Let's see how Datahaven accomplishes this. To begin, I pulled up an account within Dynamics CRM. On the center of your screen, you can see the Datahaven window with its patented virtual folders. These folders ensure that documents and files are going to be stored in a consistent manner, and in our example, we have folders ranging from ID all the way down to contract. Keep in mind that these folders can be configured based on your organization's needs. If a user needs to find a credit application, they simply open up the credit application folder and can see all documents that have been stored in this area. The process of attaching a file couldn't be simpler. For example, if we wanted to attach a lease renewal, I can either take the entire email or just the PDF attachment and drag it onto the Datahaven window. I'm going to identify this as a contract, and we're going to put in some extra data to identify this as a renewal document. When the Datahaven folder structure updates, you can see that we've added this new file and clearly marked it as renewal, and now all appropriate users will be able to find that document in a matter of seconds. But we didn't want to stop there. Datahaven also allows users to see all documents that relate to this particular account. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look a little bit lower in the folder structure, you can see we've got folders to display documents that have been associated to quotes that relate to this account in CRM. And I can view all of that information directly from the account screen. In our demo environment, we also have folders for cases, but that's only half the story. We've heard from a lot of users that use Dynamics CRM with Business Central or F&O, so we wanted to extend the folder structure to allow those users to not only be able to see CRM documents, but also files that have been stored against the associate customer within, in our case, Business Central. For example, if I want to look at our open sales transactions for this customer, I can drill down, see the various sales orders, and access files that have been attached to that customer directly from the account within CRM. This can be an incredibly useful tool when you are creating sales orders from quotes within the CRM system. But Datahaven not only allows you to view those files, users can also launch the link record, which will take them from CRM directly, in this case, to the sales order within Business Central, where I can see all supporting files that have been attached to this sales order, as well as the quote within CRM. And if this was a drop ship, I can also access documents that were attached to the associated purchase order within Business Central. But once again, we didn't want to stop there. We've heard from users over the last year, and a lot of companies have started using Teams quite heavily. So we wanted to give Teams users the ability to access files from a channel that's been set up, in this case for this account. From Teams, you can see we've got access to the Datahaven folder structure, where I can see any documents that have been attached to the account or the customer within Business Central, or I can see documents that have been attached to the account within CRM, including the lease renewal document. And the goal of Datahaven is to give users access to the information they need from the platform of their choice and to ensure that everything is stored consistently. Now, the demo you just saw is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the functionality Datahaven provides. In fact, Datahaven has over 450 document-centric features and can handle any document management requirement that an organization may have, whether it be simply attaching an email to an account, as we saw during the demonstration, to full OCR data entry. If you come across a feature that's not in the current system, our team can probably add it pretty easily. In summary, why Datahaven? Well, here are some of the comments that we've received from customers over the years. Our team has over 25 years experience providing document management and workflow solutions to CRM and ERP customers, over 15 of which have been focused on the dynamic space. Our solutions provide maximum visibility across your entire organization, as we discussed earlier with Brian. Datahaven's integration with CRM, F&O, Business Central, Teams, and Power Platform maximize your return on investment because we're taking advantage of the applications that you use every day. Our support and implementation teams are based in North America and Western Europe, so we can assist customers in the likely event that an issue arises, or our team can also help with the implementation. I want to thank everyone for attending today's session and hope you found it beneficial. Please be sure to enter questions within the chat so we can answer them during the live Q&A. Our team will also be available throughout the event, so be sure to reach out to us if you have any additional questions or specific scenarios that you'd like to run through with us. We hope you enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you for attending our session. We were very excited to be able to speak with one of our customers and discuss their experience using Datahaven in real-world scenarios. We did have some questions come in through the chat, so I did want to go through those first. First off, there were a lot of questions regarding Datahaven's integration with the Power Platform or Power Automate. And yes, Datahaven can support Power Automate for no-code workflows. As you saw on the tail end of the demonstration, we have our virtual folder structure really that can be embedded in a variety of applications, including the Power Platform. And as you saw during the demonstration, we can also integrate with Teams as well as ERP. In today's example, we showed with Business Central, but Datahaven also supports Dynamics F&O as well. And that's an area, to be honest with you, we're very excited with what the Power Platform offers our clients. We've actually had one client that created a virtual agent where their customers can go in, request copies of documents through a chatbot with no need to reach out to a member of the sales team, for example. Another question that came in was centered around document file storage. With Datahaven, we have a variety of options. We know that organizations, particularly in today's environment, some want to have their documents on premise, some hosted in the cloud, and at Datahaven, we provide both options. So users that want or need to have the storage on premise, we can support those, but we also do have hosted options where we can host the database for users, and we host it up in Azure. Another question that came in was centered around, in terms of viewing documents from different applications, depending on how the system's configured in the files that they're looking for, a CRM user may need to have a Dynamics Business Central, a Dynamics team member license to view the complete folder structure, because we may retrieve certain elements from Dynamics. But overall, oftentimes users can access documents from whether it be from Teams or from CRM without the need to have a Dynamics license for the other application. And really the goal at Datahaven is to provide organizations with what I call a single source of truth. So whether information is being stored in CRM, BC, or Teams or Outlook, you have one location where all files are accessible. I noticed that we need to wrap up. I want to thank everyone for attending our session, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me throughout the conference.